Okay, guys, so let's talk a little bit about good note taking, how to read a textbook, and just some of the differences in learning that you're going to do in a virtual environment than you would be doing in person. So, a lot of times in person, you come to class, I put stuff up on the screen, we take notes, we talk, we interact, that kind of thing. And for the most part in my classes, I don't require kids to read the textbook because I figure if you're with me 5 days a week, I'm going to be able to teach you face to face everything that you would read. I usually give out a reading schedule and just say, hey, if you miss some days or if you want some clarification, here's where we are in the textbook. But in person, I don't do a lot of textbook reading. Now, in the virtual format, you will be doing a lot of textbook reading. And I say a lot, just kind of relative to what we would be doing. So I wanted to make sure that number one, we talked about how to read a textbook. Number two, how to take good notes. All right. So first, notes. You can see on my screen here, this is the Cornell note-taking system. I've divided the paper into three main sections. All right. You can see them there, 1, 2, and 3. All right. And basically, if you're taking notes in the Cornell system, this is probably how you would take notes in a lecture. So if you're watching one of my lecture videos, or even if we were in person in class, this would be something that I would show you guys how to use to take notes. You can also use this to help you read a textbook, but we'll get to that in a minute. So you want to lay out the page like this every single time. So we draw this first line, right, and I'll do it in black. There's my first line I draw. There's the second line I draw. And then here's the third line I draw. And this is usually 5 to 6 lines from the bottom. Okay, so from the bottom of the line paper that you're using. Now, while you're watching the lecture video or while you're sitting in class, you guys would be taking notes in this section, okay, this section number 1. Now, something that's important, when you take notes in a live format or in a lecture format, you can't write down every single thing that I say. It's just not possible. You guys, you'll get way behind. You'll constantly feel like you're catching up, and you just write furiously. That's not good note taking. Writing down everything the teacher says is not good note taking. Okay, so when you're taking notes, first you want to make sure you get the big ideas. So you listen to the teacher when they start to hound something. Right, they're going over and over and over. That's important. We write it down. All right, we want to feel free to use shorthand. Okay. These are your notes. No one's ever going to read them but you. All right. So use shorthand. Use things like the and symbol, right? That's what I use. Now I know that the and symbol really looks like that, but okay, I don't use that. It's faster for me to just say and, or with, or because, or one that I usually use in my notes is therefore, T4. And this one is a big one for me. It means like the first sentence leads to the second sentence. So it's a cause and effect kind of thing. So I use T4, although sometimes I do it like that so it doesn't look like a plus. You come up with your own shorthand, okay? And that is a good way for you to take notes. Underline things, right? Use a highlighter. I would encourage you to do this on paper, not to make digital notes, just because digital notes can be a little messier. But if you want to use like an Apple Pencil on your iPad and take notes, fine. The notes section has to work for you. Now, as soon as the notes are done, okay, you've watched my lecture video, whatever, you move over here into the second category, the key points. And what you're going to do is you're going to actually draw arrows or, underline and pull out, and you're going to identify the key points. So we could say like, don't write word for word. Okay. Use symbols. Okay. And I'm just going to fill up this whole side with the key points from my notes. Right. I like to use a different color pen for the arrows, but I usually just write in black or blue ink. I would encourage you not to use colors that are like really light, like lime green or, hot pink, simply because they can be confusing. Are you trying to highlight something with a different color, or are you just using different colors to use it, right? So have a reason for using each thing. The last thing we want to do, once we've got our key points, got our notes, is we want to write a summary. And this is when you take the grand idea from the notes, you take the key points, and you're going to write a couple of sentences that summarize what the lecture is about. And here is the key. When you're studying for a test, when you're studying for a quiz, when you're studying a concept, you should spend most of your time in section 2 and 3, because this was what you did in class. This is the scratch work. This is the rough, the unfinished product. This is where you put out your key points, and this is where you put it all together. So that's the Cornell note system. One more thing in the top right, make sure that you have the class name, the date. I usually write the lecture title as well if I'm taking notes. But that is a good note system. Okay, so if you've never used a note system before, go back, watch this first part of the video again, and try that out. And you should be able to take the last 10 minutes and kind of distill it down into a handy one-page thing, okay? That's how you take notes. That is a note-taking system, okay? And it's good to have a system. It's good to have a plan. Now let's switch gears. Let's talk about how to read a textbook, okay? So a couple rules of thumb. First, textbooks are not like fiction books, right? They're not enjoyable to read for most people. I love to read a textbook, but I'm a science teacher, so big surprise there. And it also depends on the textbook. Like, I do not want to read a textbook on English grammar, least favorite class. Just, it is what it is, right? So if I have to read a textbook in order to, fulfill some requirement for a class, then this is the system that I use, okay? So first thing I do is I need to figure out how many pages I need to read. And I'm going to multiply that by 5 minutes, because you might be able to sit down and read, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, right? And you can read, 3-4 hours just straight. That's going to be difficult with a textbook, because the textbook is delivering information with every single sentence. And some of it's important, some of it's not. And it's unlike a story, okay? So we want to kind of figure out how long we need to spend reading. So as a general rule of thumb, take your number of pages and multiply by 5 minutes, okay? So if you've got 10 pages to read, that should take you about 50 minutes, right? That's what we plan for. Hopefully it won't take you that long, but that's a good estimate. The second thing we do is we break our reading up into chunks. We only want to read about 10 pages or so at a time. It's okay if, like, let's say you only have 11 pages to read. We'll just go ahead and read the 11. But look at the number of pages that you have and divide it into manageable chunks. I like to recommend 10 pages. I try not to go above that. Even for me, like, I've taken quite a few classes. I've had some really dense textbooks. I don't normally read more than 10 or 15. So shoot for around 10. The reason you want to break it up into chunks is you want to give your brain a break, and you want to have time to take notes, right? And we'll kind of talk about how that goes together in a minute. The last thing is we want to use a note-taking system. So I like the P2R system for reading. And P2R, you can marry this with Cornell, okay? So the Cornell system that I just showed you is the note-taking system. P2R is the reading system, all right? So let's look at P2R and how that fits with Cornell. So P2R stands for preview, read, review. So there's 2 R's, all right? So the first one is preview. So basically what you want to do, take your 10 pages, sit down, and just skim it. Look at the title of the sections, okay? If they don't have section titles, just read the first line of each paragraph. Always read the last paragraph in the section, right, that you're going to be checking out, because that will tell you if you need to, say, add a page, or you might even need to take away a page, right? So stop at 9 if that's where the section ends. Make sure you look at all the graphs, all the figures, all the pictures beforehand. So I'm going to grab a textbook here. So this is my AP chemistry textbook. And, if I'm reading, let's just look at chapter 2, okay? And why we might want to do this. Let's go to the very first page of chapter 2. Okay. So here's the first page of chapter 2. All right. Now, as I flip through this, okay, you can see that there are pictures with like descriptions all over the place. There's pictures down here. All right. flip a couple pages, we have another diagram, we have a diagram up here, we have pictures. And so in the first 10 pages, there's all this like other stuff that we want to look through. There's, if I bring this up a little closer, you can probably see that there's different colored boxes, right? That have, practice problems and that kind of thing in there. And so it's nice if when we're reading, we know that that stuff is coming and we've already looked at the picture. So when, the reading says, check out the molecular structure of water, you've already looked at it. Or it says, Rutherford's gold foil experiment, you already know kind of what it looks like. So your preview looks at the overall themes. What are the bold headings? If there's vocab words, they're bold, we should look at them. And then just look through the graphs, look through the figures. It should take you tops, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to look through this. You're not taking notes. You're just getting an overall sense of what's there. If you're reading, if like it goes past a section, so like let's say you're in like 2.1 and the 10 pages takes you into 2.2, look at the study questions at the back of the chapter that say like, these are the things that you should be able to answer. We always want to know the questions beforehand. So when I gave you guys like the problem sets for the week, I give them to you on Sunday. Go ahead and look at the questions. That way when you're reading it, you'll be like, oh, hey, I need this for later. So that's the preview part. The first R is read. Once you're done previewing, now we're going to read. And this is active reading, okay? So we're going to read the material. We're going to take notes as we finish main ideas. So don't take notes on every sentence because you don't know where the paragraph's going. So wait till you get through the whole paragraph or the whole section. And then, okay, what was the main idea? What was the key person here? What was the discovery? Whatever that is, that's where you put your notes in Cornell, all right, in the Cornell system. So then the notes section, we're like, all right, first page, yada, 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 right? Here's my reading. Oh, okay, so, Ernest Rutherford used discovered alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. Cool, there's a good note. You read a little bit more. Oh, Ernest Rutherford used the alpha particles that he discovered in order to conduct the gold foil experiment. Cool, keep reading. The gold foil experiment shows us that the nucleus of the atom was small and dense because the alpha particles ran into it, okay? So I take a little note. Now that's 4, 5, 6 paragraphs worth of reading, and we, have distilled that down to a couple sentences. So take notes as you go, but just make sure you don't take notes on everything. A word of caution about highlighting, by the way. Don't highlight as you read. Highlight, if you're going to highlight something, after you've read the whole paragraph for the exact same reason. You don't know what's important until you finish the main idea. Now, once you get done with the first R, the read, then we go to review. Once you get to the end of your 10-page chunk or however you chunk it, look at the notes you've made. They should be on one page of Cornell notes, right? One page per section. So that's when you sit down, you step away from the book, you look at your notes, you pull out the key ideas to that left-hand column, you think about it, you read it. If you need to check back and get something specific, you do so, and then you write your summary. The point is, get 10 pages onto that one page of notes so that you don't have to go through and hunt like specific facts or whatever. You just read your summary that you wrote and your key points. So I know that reading a textbook is daunting, all right? I know that it's something you may have never done before. Go into it with a plan, all right? You may have never thought about how to study a textbook before. This is a good place to start, all right? So if you have questions, let me know, all right? Shoot me an email, whatever. I encourage you to give this a shot with just some book you have laying around the house or this lecture video or whatever before you have to do it for real, right? So let me know if you have any issues or if you have any questions, and I'll be glad to kind of fill you in or talk to you about a way that we can adapt this for you, all right? So that's taking notes and how to read a textbook.